Your body contains a clock. Not a metaphor, a real, molecular clock built into nearly every cell you have. It controls your hormones, your metabolism, your immune system, and your ability to burn fat. And for most people alive today, that clock is broken. Not because of what they're eating, because of when. And the damage it's doing is something most doctors aren't trained to look for. In 1984, three American scientists were studying fruit flies. They weren't looking for anything relevant to human health. They were simply trying to understand why the flies slept when they slept and woke when they woke. What they found changed biology permanently. There was a single gene that produced a protein on a precise 24-hour cycle. The protein built up through the night and broke down through the day. And as it cycled, it quietly controlled dozens of other biological processes at once, like a conductor running an orchestra no one had ever noticed. They named it the period gene. What they couldn't have known in 1984 was that the same gene would be found in humans 2 decades later, not just in the brain, in the liver, in the intestines, in the fat cells, in the heart. Nearly every organ in your body carries its own version of this clock, running the same quiet 24-hour cycle, telling each tissue when to be active, when to rest, when to burn, when to store. Your liver doesn't sit there waiting for food to arrive. It schedules itself. It produces digestive enzymes at specific times. It clears toxins at specific times. It stores and releases energy at specific times. All of it coordinated by a clock most people have never heard of. The three scientists who discovered this received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2017. For almost all of human history, that clock was never a problem, because the clock in the world ran in perfect alignment. Your ancestors woke with the sun. Light hit their retinas and triggered a cascade of signals through the body. Cortisol rose. Core temperature climbed. Digestion switched on. The body read sunrise as a starting gun. They ate when the sun was up. They stopped when it went down. Not because of discipline or intention, because when the sun set, the food was gone. You could not hunt in the dark. You could not dig roots or gather berries in the dark. Darkness was not dinner time. Darkness was the end. Researchers studying the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer groups still living something close to the original human lifestyle, have documented this directly. The Hadza eat during daylight. They do not eat after dark. Not as a formal rule, simply because that is when the food exists and when the body has always expected it to arrive. And so your digestive system evolved around that reality. Your insulin sensitivity is highest in the morning and lowest at night. Your gut motility slows after sunset. Your liver shifts from processing incoming nutrients to running its nightly repair cycle. These are not preferences. They are biological machinery, calibrated across hundreds of thousands of years to a single reliable assumption. When the light goes out, eating is over. That assumption held for almost all of human history. Then two things happened, and both of them happened recently. The first was artificial light. Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb in 1879. Within 2 generations, humans who had spent their evenings in near total darkness were routinely staying up under artificial light until 10, 11, midnight. The evening, which had been time for rest, became time for activity, for another meal, for a snack in front of a screen. Your body clock is set by light. Specifically, by light hitting a cluster of neurons deep in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. When light hits those cells, the brain reads it as daytime. It suppresses melatonin. It keeps the metabolism active. It tells your organs that food may be coming and to stay ready. A lamp at 10 p.m. sends the same signal to that cluster of neurons as the noon sun. Your body cannot tell the difference. The second rupture was food availability. The grocery store, the refrigerator, the microwave, the 24-hour delivery app on your phone. For the first time in the history of the species, food became available at every hour of the day and night. The biological assumption that darkness enforced fasting no longer had anything to back it up, and so it was ignored, quietly, continuously, with consequences that are only now being measured. In 2012, a researcher named Sachidananda Panda at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies in San Diego began tracking when people actually ate, not what they ate. When. He gave participants a smartphone app and asked them to photograph everything that entered their mouth, every meal, every snack, every caloric drink. The results surprised even him. Most participants assumed they ate within a 10 to 12-hour window. The actual average was closer to 15. People were putting food into their bodies from within minutes of waking until shortly before sleeping. Their digestive systems were running almost without pause. This matters because of what the body depends on that time to do. Your liver needs several hours in a fasted state to complete its nightly detoxification cycle. Your gut depends on quiet intervals to run the muscular wave contractions that sweep debris and bacteria through your intestines. This process, called the migrating motor complex, only activates when the gut is empty. If you are consuming calories every few hours until you sleep, it never completes. You are running your body like a factory with no maintenance window and wondering why the machinery keeps failing ahead of schedule. Panda then tested the timing question directly in mice. 2 groups. Identical food, identical calories. The only variable was the feeding window. One group ate freely at any hour. The other ate within an 8-hour window aligned with their active period. After 18 weeks, the unrestricted mice were obese, pre-diabetic, and showing early liver damage. The time-restricted mice were lean and metabolically healthy. Same food, same calories, completely different bodies. Then he reversed it. He took already obese mice and restricted their feeding window without changing what they ate at all. They lost weight. Their blood markers normalized. Their inflammation markers dropped. The food had not changed. Only the timing had. Here is what is actually happening inside you when you eat at the wrong time. Your pancreas produces insulin in response to incoming food. But your pancreatic cells also run on the internal clock. They are most efficient at producing insulin in the morning and least efficient at night. A 2015 study published in Current Biology served healthy adults the exact same standardized meal at different times of day and measured the blood sugar response each time. The evening meal produced blood glucose levels 17% higher than the identical morning meal. Not because the food was different, because the body processing it was running on a different shift. Insulin does 2 things at once. It clears glucose from your blood, and it signals your fat cells to store energy. At night, when insulin sensitivity is low, more of what you eat gets stored rather than burned. Your body at 9 p.m. treats incoming food as something to hold on to, not something to use. And it gets more specific than that. A 2021 study from Harvard's Brigham and Women's Hospital tracked hunger hormones in participants eating on a delayed schedule. Their leptin levels, leptin being the hormone that signals fullness to the brain, were significantly suppressed. Their ghrelin levels, ghrelin being the hormone that drives the urge to eat, were significantly elevated. Eating late was not satisfying them. It was making them hungrier. The timing of your meals is actively reshaping the hormones that determine whether you feel satisfied or keep reaching for more. You are not failing at willpower. You are fighting a clock you were never told existed. Shift workers have been the accidental test subjects for this science for 50 years. People working nights and sleeping days. People whose schedules run directly opposite to the body's built-in architecture. The data on shift workers is not subtle. Significantly higher rates of type 2 diabetes, higher cardiovascular disease, higher obesity, higher rates of certain cancers. For years, researchers attributed this to stress, poor food choices, or disrupted sleep. But when those variables are controlled for in studies, the elevated risk remains. Eating out of alignment with the internal clock is itself a risk factor, independent of what you eat, independent of how much you sleep. A 2019 study published in the journal Diabetologia followed more than 63,000 women over 18 years. Women who regularly ate their largest meal in the evening had a 36% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes than women who ate their largest meal at midday. Same demographics, different timing. You are not built to eat in the dark. And when you do, every system runs a little worse. Not enough to notice tomorrow, enough to notice in a decade. None of this requires a new diet with a name, no new supplements, no complicated rules. What the research consistently points to is simpler than any of that. A consistent eating window of 10 to 12 hours, aligned with daylight, starting within 1 to 2 hours of waking and closing a few hours before sleep. Not because of a trend, because this is the rhythm your liver, your pancreas, Your gut lining and your hormones were built around over hundreds of thousands of years. The Hadza don't track their eating window. They never needed to. The sun set it for them. The food enforced it. The dark closed it every night. All three of those enforcers have been removed from your life, which means you now have to do deliberately what your ancestors did automatically. Every morning, when the light comes through your window, something happens inside you that has been happening in humans for hundreds of thousands of years. A cluster of neurons reads the incoming light, cortisol begins to rise, body temperature climbs, your digestive system stirs, your body tells itself it is day, it is time to begin. For almost all of human history, what followed was predictable. Eat while the sun is up, stop when it goes down. The clock and the life moved together without anyone having to think about it. Now you eat dinner at 9 p.m. under LED lights, while a screen tells your brain it's the middle of the afternoon. Your liver is already cycling into its overnight mode. Your gut is trying to run its maintenance pass. Your melatonin is trying to rise, and food keeps arriving. Your body handles it as best it can, but best, at that hour, is not what it was designed for. You're not broken. Your clock is broken. And the only thing standing between you and it running the way it was built to run is knowing that it exists. Now you know.